let's hold comments and questions for just a while. I know Wolf can answer this one. Using visceral amounts of violence or even like aftermath of such as setting to increase the danger level and really bring that home to the players. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I've noticed that some of your stuff
it leads into that wildly visceral, crazed stuff. Well, yeah, and sometimes it's a matter of the violence has to be at such a level that it does trigger, right? Things that people don't think about. And it has to be transgressive to get through your jaded, I don't know, violence every week, D&D slaughter party. And in some cases, I don't necessarily ask about it ahead of time. I don't know if this is a good idea. The one case that I put together not so long ago was something for Empire of the Ghouls, where, the whole campaign is about fighting the undead. They're all cannibals. They all eat flesh. How much more transgressive can I get for the finale? Well, okay. It was written as a patron project, and so the design came from my collaborators as well. And we said, we really need to amp it up in the finale, and when they finally break into the big palace, it's a big slugfest, there's a fight after fight. And it's one of the classic D&D tropes. There's a feast, there's the emperor, there's his guards. The feast, of course, is they've got an angel staked out on the table, and they're taking it apart. Hey, dinner time. And it got a hell of a reaction. And it broke through sort of the level of, hey, we've been dealing with ghouls all this time. But, I probably should have put a design note in that scenario saying, if you have really religious players, this might be a bad scene, and you might want to dial it back. Because it's not always about, as you were saying, right? It was the religious fanatic character and pressing his buttons. Another case was a Call of Cthulhu scenario. This is less about violence, but somebody decided to play a black character in the 20s. And this kind of squicked me because I was the one who had to say, in all the NPC roles, I'm sorry, not you. You can't drink here, you can't sit here, you can't do that. Yeah. And by the end of that campaign, I'm like, I really wish you played a white guy because I feel like I was the,
And you have to stand up occasionally, shake it out, and say, look, it's just a game.
Right.
It's one of the more difficult experiences in gaming, especially in the indie scene right now. Is a game called Steel Away Jordan. Steel Away Jordan is you're playing slaves in the antebellum South, and everybody is terrified of this game. They're terrified they're going to get it wrong. They're terrified that they're going to treat the subject matter indelicately. They're afraid it's going to be horribly depressing, and it's not. And you're not going to play around. You're going to make a slave narrative that's about hope and about being free and about overcoming the worst thing that people can do to each other. One of the worst. And but the sheer amount of, oh my God, I couldn't play that. Is very hard.
It comes with a ton of baggage.
Right.
And you don't...
And it's very hard on the GM, because the GM has to play the master, and the GM has to play someone who does something that we consider now to be a heinous crime, and it's hard.
You guys just touched on something that actually I'm hoping to bring up to this panel, which is from a design consideration. A lot of times, and we had a lot of disputes, sometimes screaming matches at White Wolf about this one.
I knew it.
Role-playing games are interactive. In a role-playing game, you are taking your audience. You don't know who your audience is going to be. You can generally get a good guess, but you don't know who exactly is going to pick up your book. And in any role-playing game book, you're saying, you're 8, fill in the blank. Ain't it cool? Which is one of the reasons that I never did a player character group, a player's guide for Nefandi in Mage the Ascension, was because I personally have experience with magic, have experience with the occult and so forth. I've seen the effects of black magic. I've seen the people who do it, and I'm not going to tell anybody, hey, ain't this cool?
Has anybody seen what is it? What's the name of the book? For Godlike, the Germany source book. Does anybody know what the name of that one is?
I don't know the name, but I know the book.
Yeah, and the intro, which says if you're super in the German army, you're an SS man. Yeah. You're an anti-Semite. You're a genocidal maniac. If you play this as anything other than an NPC, will to power, it says right there, you are a fucking asshole. Those words. I thought that was actually a really brave thing for them to say right there in the front of their book, and they laid it out right there, that they said, look, we're writing this so that you can use it, but if you think this is cool, we don't like you.
Yeah, but from a design standpoint, whether it's us designing or whether it's one of you guys designing a game to run it, you are inviting your players into a world where they are taking on roles, and you got to be really, really sure about what those roles are, and finding out where, checking in with players like we were talking about earlier, checking to find out whether or not they are comfortable with or extremely uncomfortable with those roles. And if you are a professional designer working with a company, being really, really sure, do you want to ask people and invite people and make money off of people going there? And that was the subject of a lot of debate back when I was with the Wolf. How far do we want to invite people to go? How much
warning do you think you owe your players, when there's something of adult nature in your game? What do you think?
You definitely owe them some warning. I mean, the worst experiences have been the ones where I say, oh, this would be a great surprise to spring on them.
Oh, this will go well.
No, that doesn't happen. So, some advance warning.
I think one of the worst gaming experiences I ever had was one of my first. And honestly, sometimes I wonder why I went back to it after this. And it wasn't actually anything that was done to my character. We had two guys in the group. One guy always played a sexual fantasy. And the other guy victimized the first guy's sexual fantasy in loving detail.
It was pathological.
A lot. It was really kind of creepy and gross. But it didn't bother me so much the victimization. It was the fact that the first guy whose character was being victimized just went, oh, well, that just happens to hot girls. Whoa. That's what got me. It wasn't the loving depiction of rape. It was the, well, of course it happens to her. She's a hot girl. She's just used to it. That really got me.
Yeah, we don't game with those guys anymore.
Yeah.
Where's the shower, man?
I have a question actually for Mickey and Wolfgang. Would you rather have had to role-play, depict, either side of the table, that or, say, have to deal with a PC torturing an NPC, either through electrical overstimulation or bastonado, the beating of the feet, the soles of the feet?
Just because of my personal past issues, I actually have way less problem with the non-sexual torture than the sexual torture. And I also happen to play with a bunch of girls who are really fucking bloodthirsty.
Well, even when we're not playing, I mean, we get dark, but we get dark going into it with open eyes. We know what's coming. We play, like I said, we've said before, we play a lot of indie games, and when you play, good example, Grey Ranks, which is about child soldiers in the Warsaw Uprising. It's Poland was bombed to dirt. No one made it out alive or without scars. That's a brutal story, and bad things are going to happen. And the only conversation we really have at the beginning of that game is, how bad is it going to get?
Well, it's like Little Fears. You know going in that there's going to be child abuse. And, I mean, the game itself, actually, in some of these cases, should be warning enough. It's not like, when I start to run Little Fears, everybody knows there's going to be molestation and kidnapping and maiming and torturing, because that's what the game is built around. But if you're running a more generic system like, say, GURPS or D&D, I think you definitely need to have these conversations.
Well, and it depends on who